The UCLA Bruins are going through a ton of change in 2024. There's going to be a new head coach, new offensive and defensive coordinators, a new primary starting quarterback, and probably the biggest change of them all, UCLA is now joining the Big Ten Conference. But hey, there's still a lot of good pieces offensively and defensively, and USC could still be built to compete if all the pieces fit into place. So are the Bruins going to be able to be competitive and see good success in their first season as a member of the Big Ten in 2024? Well, you're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome back to Prediction Season. It's where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams, and it means I'm doing your favorite team, and we are almost done with the Power 4 teams. If you're a fan of a Power 4 team and I haven't done a video on your team yet, it is coming later this week. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you hear your thoughts. All right, I should say you hear my thoughts on your favorite team. Group of 5 teams, again, are going to be mixed in as well. But thank you so much for watching this video. Help support my channel in more ways than you can even imagine, as well as subscribing. You can also like, comment, share, and do anything you can to interact with the channel because it all helps support what I do here on YouTube, and I really appreciate all of it. So with all that out of the way, well, I also would like to say apologies if my voice has been a little, or if my voice is scratchy. I've been a little under the weather lately, but that's not going to stop me from recording videos for you guys. How do we talk about the Bruins in 2024? We're going to go ahead and dive on into the team's offense, dive into the defense, and at the end of the video, we will give UCLA's football schedule, a game-by-game preview and prediction. But a couple more things before we do start, because right over here are going to be the stats the team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And, of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. The former running back coach, Deshaun Foster, is taking over this program. DeAnton Lynn was supposed to be the replacement for Chip Kelly. Well, DeAnton Lynn, the former defensive coordinator, he has transferred, or not transferred, I should say, he has moved over to take the same position over at USC. And, of course, Chip Kelly's now the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. So Deshaun Foster is your new head coach. Offensive coordinator this season is Eric Bieniemy, and let's dive on into the UCLA offense for 2024. You take a look at the stats that they put up last season, and they were really pretty good. Maybe apart from the scoring, you wanted to see UCLA score some more points last season, but again, this was a very good football, well, maybe not very good, but it was a pretty good football team last season in a lot of regards. Well, it's going to be losing a lot of talent in pretty much every position. You got to start with the most important position on the field. That's the quarterback room, and, well, you lose Dante Moore. Yes, while he does have some development still to be made, particularly with some of his decision-making, you can't argue the upside that Dante Moore possesses. 1,610 yards, 11 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and, again, only 53% complete percentage. You also do lose Colin Schlee off of last year's team as well. Dante Moore is by far the biggest loss there because, again, if he can get development and he can get his high upside playing consistently, Dante Moore is going to be a very, very good quarterback. He's transferred over to Oregon. He's going to sit behind Dylan Gabriel and learn from Dan Lanning. So who is your quarterback this season? Well, it's probably going to end up being Ethan Garbers, a former Washington Husky, had 1,136 yards, 11 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions on 67% complete percentage last year. That's the kind of Ethan Garbers you want to see throughout a full season here in 2024. We'll see what Eric Bieniemy can do with him, while you have Chase Griffin, Justin Martin, and Demarcus Davis, who is a former Washington commit that after Kalen DeBoer left, decided to recommit over to UCLA. He's a freshman entering this program. Most likely will redshirt, but again, a name I felt like had to be featured here on this board. He is a 4-star freshman after all. When you go ahead and take a look at the skill position room here, well, UCLA's rushing attack was really very, very good last season. That was due in part to a former Ball State player in Carson Steele, leading rusher last season at 847 yards and 6 touchdowns. But even though Carson Steele is gone, probably you could argue the most talented running back that was in that room last season, you get another guy coming back in TJ Harden that had very similar stats to Carson Steele last season. In only 11 fewer carries, had 827 yards, and led the team with 8 rushing touchdowns. So, okay, you're going to have a pretty solid run game this year as Anthony Adkins and Keegan Jones also come back. You take out Colin Schlee being the team's 3rd leading rusher last season. Adkins was your team's 4th leading receiver, and Jones was your team's 5th leading receiver last season. You combine both of those numbers, you're looking at right around 300 yards there. So, again, lots of good talent coming back in this running back room. Bruins should still have a solid run game in 2024. Wide receiver room. Well, Josiah Norwood is going to be gone. He has run out of eligibility. He has graduated, 12 catches for 178 yards and 2 touchdowns last season, but you lose two bigger pieces through the transfer portal, as Kyle Ford and Cam Brown both do leave this program. Cam Brown had 163 yards receiving last season. Kyle Ford, pretty talented player in his own right, 236 yards on 22 catches and 1 touchdown last season. Where are both of those guys going to be playing football next year? Well, Kyle Ford is going to go over to play for USC, and Cam Brown has gone over to play for Purdue. So you lose a couple transfers out of this wide receiver room, but a lot of your leading wide receivers from last season come back. Logan Loya was the team's leading receiver last year in pretty much every major category, 59 catches, 655 yards, and 5 touchdowns for him last season. J. Michael Sturdivant, the former Cal transfer, he's going to be coming back as well. He was right there on the precipice of 600 yards last year at 597 yards and 4 touchdowns, as well as 16.6 yards per catch. Titus Mokio Atimalala is also coming back here to this team, as well as Braden Pagan and Xavier Staples that'll be back in this wide receiver room. But you are getting a transfer into this program. Enrico Flores, a former member of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, 4-star rated transfer, very talented player that'll see good playing time in the UCLA wide receiver room, as well as a freshman in Quasi Gilmer. In fact, that is your whole 2 and a little bit of your 3 deep, according to ourlads.com. Pretty talented wide receiver room here that I really like for UCLA. You got a lot of good returning pieces, a lot of good talent. And then in the tight end room, you do lose Colson Yankoff. He is going to be going off to the NFL, as well as Carson Ryan, who has entered the transfer portal. Carson Ryan last season, 205 yards, 3 touchdowns for him. So who comes back? Well, Maliki Matavao, and I apologize if I butchered that last name. I probably did. He comes back, had 20.2 yards per reception last year, 283 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Jack Peterson does return as well. On the offensive line, you do lose your center, Duke Clements of the NFL, while Bruno Fina, Jake Wiley, and Benjamin Roy Jr. all have entered the transfer portal. They all saw some pretty solid playing time, at least on the offensive line last season. Sam Yoon, Josh Carlin, Garrett DiGiorgio, and Spencer Holstegi, and I probably butchered that last name as well. They all come back, while Michael Carmody, Ruben Unji, and Alani Makaheli come back, or not come back, I should say, come in through the transfer portal. Combination of those 7 guys probably will be your starting offensive line for the Bruins in 2024. And when you talk about this offense, look, it's got a lot of pieces that I like, but how does the Eric Bieniemy situation transition from the NFL into the college game? How does it transition over into the Big Ten of all things? But look, as long as you get solid play from Ethan Garbers, as long as TJ Harden and this run game continue from where they left off last season, you got a lot of good pieces in this wide receiver room. And yeah, you probably want the offensive line to take a step up. 42 sacks allowed last season. And, well, they probably at times could do a little bit better protection in the run game as well, even though you still have some very, very talented weapons. UCLA's offense, if they can start scoring the football more than they did last year, I think they're going to be pretty well off here in 2024. Defensively, we got to talk about a lot of talent that they lost, because this defense is just not going to be where it was last season. It just isn't. They allowed only 301 yards per game last year, 80 rush yards per game. They lost their defensive coordinator, DeAnton Lynn, and I think that's going to have a huge impact on this defensive scheme, as well as a lot of the talent that they are leaving was top-notch talent. As you see, they have someone in every position that has gone to the NFL. Defensive line is where they lose a ton of talent, particularly in the edge rushing category. Liatu Latu is a very, very talented player off the edge, 49 tackles, had 13 sacks, which led the Bruins last season. They had 43 sacks a season ago. Yeah, you're going to hear a lot of sack production that is gone here, because you also do lose the Murphy brothers. Gabriel and Grayson are also both gone off to the NFL. 8 sacks and 5 sacks respectively for both of those guys. So Latu had 13 sacks. You lose another 13 when the Murphy brothers do leave. And Carl Jones Jr., he is going to be leaving this team as well. You lose 2 more sacks along with him, 39 tackles as well. And Cho Bryant Strother will be leaving this team here as well as a depth piece in the edge rushing / defensive line room. Defensive line, though, what do you have come back? Jay Tawia is going to be returning. He's going to end up being one of the leaders on the defensive line this year, 28 tackles and 1 sack for him last season. Gary Smith, Keanu Williams, and Devin Alpu. And I probably butchered that last name, so I apologize. But those are all guys that you're going to see coming back, and all guys that I would imagine get some pretty solid playing time here for the UCLA Bruins in 2024, as well as some transfers. Jacob Busick, Sheriff Sayi, and I probably butchered that last name, and I know I will butcher this one, but Collins Akampong will be transferring in here to this program. I'll tell you where they all hail from, but you are getting Akampong over from Miami. Busick is coming over from Navy, and Sayi is coming over from Florida A&M. You do have Luke Schuerman, who I believe is a JUCO community college, maybe even a D2 transfer, but he's entering this program here as well. We'll run through the other positions a little more quickly here in the linebacker room. You do lose one of your better defensive players from last season. In fact, he was your leading tackler last year, and you lose more sack production when he leaves because Darius Muwasa, and I definitely need to fix that spelling. There you go. That's a little better, isn't it? I probably butchered that last name, so I apologize. He is going to be gone to the NFL. 75 tackles, 4 sacks. You tack on 5 pass defended and an interception last year. Was one of your better, if not your best, defensive player from last season. However, you do get a lot back coming back in this linebacker room. Kane Madrano is going to be coming back. Oluwafemi Oladejo will be back in this linebacker room as well. Those were your second and third leading tacklers from last season. And John Vaughns also comes back, while Joseph Vaughn is a transfer coming in, and he'll play linebacker, edge rusher. You can really mix him up and play him anywhere on the defensive side. Defensive back room, Alex Johnson is going to be gone to the NFL. Very talented corner for this team. Had 29 tackles, 3 pass defended, and led the team with 5 interceptions a season ago, while John Humphrey does leave through the transfer portal. 31 tackles, 3 pass defended, 2 picks for him last season. Safety room, Kenny Churchwell and Jordan Anderson are going to be gone. Churchwell was the team's 4th leading tackler last season. Jordan Anderson, very talented player for this defense last season as well. He had 18 tackles, as well as Kamari Ramsey and William Nimmo. They will both be playing for new programs in 2023. They are off through the transfer, or 2024, I should say. They're off through the transfer portal. So who comes back? Jalen Davies, Devin Kirkwood, and Jade Marshall all come back to the cornerback room, while Kalen Moore is a Cal transfer that enters this room. Croy Stewart does return in the safety room, but the safety room is going to be built off a lot of transfers here in 2024. KJ Wallace is over from Georgia Tech, Ramon Henderson is over from Notre Dame, and Brian Addison over from Oregon. And kickers are people too, you know I like to show them some love. RJ Lopez, primary place kicker for last year, leaves through the transfer portal, and Will Powers has run out of eligibility at the punting position. He has graduated. Barry Chase will be back to be the primary punter in 2024, while Blake Glesner also returns, but he'll have to battle with Mateen Baghani, a piece coming in from the transfer portal. He's over from Cal to battle it out for the place kicking duties. So overall, when you talk about the defense here, I mean, it loses a ton of talent, and I think it inevitably takes a step back in 2024. How big of a step back? I think it'll be a pretty sizable step back. I just don't see them getting near 301 yards per game allowed this season. We'll see how the new defensive system fits. Of course, DeAnton Lynn is leaving this program. He's taken the same position over there with the USC Trojans, but you still have a lot of solid talent on the defensive side. I think they did a pretty good job entering through, or I should say bringing talent in through the transfer portal. But now you have to take a look at the UCLA football schedule here for 2024, and as soon as it transitions over here, like it just did, well, you got a lot of very tough games here on the schedule, and I've been saying for a long time in a lot of my videos, I just don't think UCLA is going to be very well off this season. We'll see how not well off I have them being. You guys will find out that I may not be very popular with Bruin fans after this video go up. Hey, any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road will be in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green, much like this first week game against Hawaii. I know it's a road game to open up the season, but it's not a super long road trip for them. I mean, yes, it is, because you have to travel to Hawaii, even from California. That's quite the distance, but I don't think Hawaii is going to be a very good football team this year. UCLA should be able to pick up a win in week 1 to start out their Big Ten campaign 1-0. Any game you see in yellow is going to be a close, competitive game, but I still think the Bruins are going to be able to win, like this one here against the Indiana Hoosiers. A winnable game for Indiana, yes, but I think UCLA gets at the very minimum 1 Big Ten win this season, and I think this is going to be the one right here. I do really like the Indiana Hoosiers this year. I like what Kurt Signetti is doing, but Give them a couple years to build that program. Indiana might not get that many wins this season, but don't sleep on the Hoosiers. That's going to be a pretty solid football team. Maybe their record doesn't show it, but they got a lot of good talent on it. I just think UCLA going to be able to pull this one out. They got a lot of really good talent defensively, and I think the offense will be able to get through this Indiana defense. That, again, I think it's just going to need a little bit of time to build under Kurt Cignetti there in Bloomington, and any game in red is a loss. You're going to see a lot of red coming up here. And again, might not be very popular with Bruin fans. I do have you losing to LSU on the road. Oh, by the way, you do get your first bye week in between Hawaii and Indiana. Very early spot for a bye week, but you got to play the schedule you're given, of course, on the road against LSU. Look, LSU probably is not going to be what they were last year, especially offensively. They're just going to... that dynamic ability of that offense is going to be gone. You have a couple really good wide receivers and Neighbors and Thomas leaving that room. Of course, you have Jaden Daniels gone, but Garrett Nussmeier's there. Been with the program for a long time. He is going to be, I think, a really good piece to the LSU offense this season. LSU's got Blake Baker from Missouri coming into play, or coming in not to play, but coming in to be the defensive coordinator. And I think you're going to see LSU's defense take a step up here in 2024. That's still going to be a good football team out of the SEC, especially going on the road in Baton Rouge. Yeah, I think UCLA is going to end up dropping that one. You get to come now full force home with Big Ten play and play the Oregon Ducks. Even though this is a home game and you're used to seeing Oregon play, I mean, Dan Lanning's group is going to be one of the most, they are going to be one of the best teams in the nation in 2024. Dylan Gabriel, that team is loaded offensively, loaded defensively. Need I say more? I think UCLA, even though that is a home game in the Rose Bowl, I think Oregon is going to end up winning that game. And I don't see UCLA going on the road and beating Penn State, their first ever trip to Happy Valley as a Big Ten program. And I think it ends with a loss. I really like Penn State this year, especially if Drew Aller can develop that downfield ball. You got a really good group of running backs back there with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Abdul Carter's moving to the edge, where I think he's going to see tremendous success, and the Penn State defense will be scary in 2024. Penn State, I have beating UCLA. I have Minnesota beating UCLA here too. PJ Fleck is going to have a really good defense in Minneapolis this season. Ethan Kaliakmanis is gone, and I think Minnesota found a really good quarterback from New Hampshire in Max Brosmer. He's got some really good pieces offensively to work with, and I think Minnesota, don't be sleeping on the Gophers this year. They can definitely be a pretty solid team. They beat UCLA in Week 7, and the loss party continues. I really like the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in 2024, and I think UCLA loses on the road in Piscataway. Not to mention, that's just a long haul of a road trip. You're going all the way from Los Angeles to Piscataway. That's literally one end of the country to the other. I think we're going to see a lot of these long road trips affect teams here, and yes, UCLA has got a lot of solid talent. I really like Rutgers. We've seen Greg Schiano build this program up before. He's doing it again, and 2024 will be another step in the right direction for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. That's a win for Rutgers and a loss for UCLA, which makes it 5 in a row. And after their bye week, I'd say after their second bye week, it doesn't get much easier, because I do have them losing on the road to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Nebraska is going to be a really good team this year. Dylan Raiola is coming in. They have one of the best defensive staffs and a really good defensive roster. Let me finish my first thought. They have one of the best defensive staffs in the entire country. And again, that defensive roster, really, really good. Dylan Raiola's got some pieces coming in through the portal that I think are going to play really big minutes for the Cornhuskers, especially in the wide receiver room this season. Watch out for Nebraska this year. That's a win for me for the Nebraska Cornhuskers in Lincoln. 6 in a row now for UCLA. Bruins fans, I hate to do it to you. 7 in a row coming up here. Iowa's defense is going to be elite this season, as much like it was last year, and that offense assuredly is going to take a step in the right direction. You're going to have a healthy Cade McNamara this season, some pretty solid pieces in the running back and wide receiver room, and I think the offensive line gets a little bit better than what we've seen out of Iowa for the past couple of seasons. The Bruins lose at home to the Iowa Hawkeyes, as that Iowa defense going to be able to shut down this UCLA offense. 2 former Pac-12 teams coming up next. UCLA knows these teams well, and again, I think you lose both of them. By the way, the Iowa and this Washington game are both going to be played on Fridays. I do think you'll lose this one to the Washington Huskies as well. Yes, I know Kalen DeBoer is gone. Michael Penix is gone. Roma Dunze is gone. Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, Dylan Johnson, a ton of defensive pieces. I know. Jed Fish is coming in. Will Rogers is coming in. Washington has a pretty good roster there, still built. And I think they'll be a pretty solid team out of the Big Ten this year. Plus, going on the road, that stadium got really loud last year. I think it'll be loud this season as well. UCLA loses that game. And they lose to their former defensive coordinator, Deanne Tunlin, and the USC Trojans. Very, very talented offensive team that I think are going to have this way against the Bruins defense. And again, this is a USC defense that's expected to take a step up. I think it'll be able to, while it'll have its moments where UCLA will be able to get some drives in and score some points, USC has too much offense. They will win that one. But UCLA does cap off the season with a win against, hey, albeit a very talented Fresno State team that I could see that one going either way as well. I know, again, I said I'm not going to be very popular with Bruin fans. I know that 3-9 is what I got. This is just one of those teams this year that I don't feel good about at all. They're going through a ton of change. This is a culture that I think is going to be a little bit down this year. And yes, while they have a lot of solid talent, I think life in the Big Ten is going to be pretty rough for UCLA, at least in 2024. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. But hey, as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. See you guys in the next video where we talk about App State. Goodbye.